discovered, especially as I've gotten older, is that we're forgetful people, aren't we? Sometimes we have to be reminded of things, and sometimes those things that we need to be reminded of are things that are important. God knows this. That's why He gives us things like pastors, teachers, evangelists, preachers. But best of all, He's given us something called the Bible. It's a book full of His holy words and wisdom that we can use to remind us of the things that we need to be reminded of about God. You know, there was a time when God decided that He wanted to create a nation of people. He wanted to mold them into a special group. And this special group was to represent Him in such a way that all nations would look at them and say, wow, we want to be like them, because they follow God's laws and God's rules, and He blesses them greatly. They were called Hebrews, later become known as God's people. Well, you would think they would have embraced this readily, wouldn't you? But they didn't. They rebelled. They rebelled against Him. So He allowed them to become captives and slaves to a heathen nation called Egypt. This they stayed under for a period of more than 400 years. Their souls began to cry out to God for help. God heard it. It says, I have heard my people's cry from their bondage in Egypt. And you know what He did? He said, I'm going to do something spectacular. And I want them to remember it. And I want them to teach the children to teach their children to remember it, so that every generation will remember it. He said, therefore I will establish a memorial, and it will be a ceremony for them to observe as a reminder of this spectacular thing that I'm about to do. Now we find this recorded in the book of Exodus. And the thing that really amazes me, I guess you'd say, about this is the detail that God went into in order to establish this memorial. So that means to me that it was extremely important to Him, and it should be extremely important to the people receiving it. Let's read some. It's in the book of Exodus, starting in chapter 12, starting with verse 1. It says, and the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt. He said, this month shall be to you the beginning of months. Isn't that interesting? God established the calendar. And it shall be the first month of the year to you. It says, speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, in the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb according to his house of his fathers, and a lamb for a house. He went on to say, now if the household be too small or too few for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto his house take it, according to the number of souls. He's basically saying, if you have too small of a family, invite your neighbor in to share it with you. Every man according to his eating shall take your count for the lamb. And he goes on to describe not just any lamb, but it has to be a special lamb. He says, your lamb shall be without blemish, shall be a male of the first year. You shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats. And ye shall keep it until the 14th day of this same month. And the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. And they shall take the blood and strike it on the two side posts and on the upper doorpost of the houses wherein they shall eat it. Now that sounds like a strange thing to do, doesn't it? He said, you take the blood and you dip hyssop in it, and you put it on this side of the door and this side of the door and over the top of the door. He said, and then they shall eat the flesh of that night, roast with fire, and with unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs shall they eat it. And then he goes on with more detail. He says, do not eat it raw. Don't boil it, he says, nor sodden at all with water, but roast it with fire. And not only this, he says, but don't break it into pieces. Don't cut it into pieces. Roast it whole. He says, roast it with fire, his head with his legs and with the protuberance thereof. Then he goes on to say, and ye shall let nothing of it remain until the morning. He says, if there is anything left over, if there is anything remaining, he says, until the morning you shall burn it with fire. He says, and thus shall you eat it. More details. He says, with your loins girded, he's saying, eat it fully dressed, ready to go. Put your shoes on your feet, your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it with haste. You'll eat it in a hurry, because it is the Lord's Passover. And then God explains what this spectacular event he's going to do is. He says, for I will pass through the land of Egypt that night, and I will smite, which means put to death, all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast. And against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment, to show them that I am Lord. And then he goes on to explain why you had to daub it on the doors. He said, and the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where you are in. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you. And the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt. And then he gives them an order. He says, and this day shall be unto you for a memorial, and ye shall keep it a feast to the Lord throughout the generations. Ye shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever. So thus God established a reminder, a memorial to remind the people of this spectacular thing, of this spectacular event he did to release them from Egyptian bondage. And they called this thing the Passover. Well, guess what? Time passed, hundreds of years, and people tend to forget. And the ceremony becomes just an activity. God speaks again. And he says, I'm going to do something even more spectacular. I'm going to offer freedom from sin bondage to all humanity. And I'm going to do this through another event. And I want them to teach the children to teach their children, so that each generation will remember it. Now Rachel's going to do for us a presentation titled, He Took the Cup, and another presentation entitled, Given for You.